Hello and welcome back to Grief Unedited. This is a place where we have real, honest, and sometimes raw conversations about grief and loss. For this new season, we are shifting the focus quite a bit. Obviously, if you were around for season one, we had some absolutely phenomenal guests on talking about their experience of death and dying. In season two, we are going to take a look behind the scenes of what we mean when we talk about the bereavement industry or bereavement support. So, this season, I have invited along some incredible guests who are going to talk about their experience of working in the field of death, dying, and loss. So we're going to sit down with some real industry experts from across the sector and hear their stories about what this means for them to do this work. So these conversations are going to explore some of the surprising lessons that these people have had along the way, some of the really unique challenges about the job that they do, and also some of the really human moments that make their work meaningful for them. Now, with the podcast, I have always encouraged you to use your own wisdom when you're listening along. So, if there is anything in today's episode that doesn't feel helpful for you, then feel free to take a pause and join back at another point. We know that grief can make us, can catch us by surprise sometimes. So, it's important that you listen to whatever you feel you need today. Now, if you would like to support the podcast, there is a variety of ways that you can do that. As you know, this is an absolute passion project for me. So one of the things that's really helpful is if you can help us spread the word, and you can do that by either leaving a review on the platform that you're listening on, or you can share the episodes as well if you think there's somebody within your network that might benefit from it. And new for this season, we also are using Buy Me a Coffee, which is a link that you can donate a small amount through. Unfortunately, there's no coffee involved in it, but it does help fuel the running of the podcast, so all of the costs that I incur in terms of the processing and running of it. So yeah, links for all of that are in the show notes. So today, season two, episode one, I am absolutely delighted to be joined by my friend, the man, the
Hello.
myth, the legend that is Mr. Christopher Ferri. And we're going to have a real deep dive into Chris's role as a celebrant. So, Chris, do you want to introduce yourself first? Because, yeah, people might not know who you are as much as you're a legend in our community.
No, thanks very much. So my name's Chris Ferri. I am from Motherwell, and yeah, I have transitioned into the role of a celebrant, and it's something that I really love doing.
Mm,
It's actually just before I came on this call, I had such a lovely message from a woman that I did a mum's service for, and she says, "When I don't, I was just actually, I was like, what is the odds in that?" Just before I come on this call, but she wrote a message saying, "I can't thank you enough." I felt like actually I'll just read it because I'm going to end up waffling. Where is it? But it was so nice because sometimes when you walk away from services like that, you're just a bit, did I do a good job? Is that
mm,
exactly what they wanted? And you're not looking for like, oh my God, that was the best service ever. As they're walking out the door, you're never looking for that, but you just want a bit of reassurance that like, it did her mum like the justice that she wanted for her mother. So she wrote, "Hi Chris, I want to express my heartfelt thanks for everything you said about my mum. You got her down to a T. You painted a picture of exactly how she was and how I could see her. I was closing my eyes as you speak, and I could just vision her. She would say, 'You've done a great job.'" So I was
oh,
like, "Do you know what? Well, I've done my job then. That's
yes.
all I need to know is if that's what you could do, if you could close your eyes and you could picture your mum, then I've done my job." So yeah, it's been something that very different. I run my own, well, say I run my own gym. I say I run it, my wife runs it. And we've got our gym, which I've been a coach for nearly 16 years, 15, 16 years. So
Wow.
it's been one of the ones where the standing up in front of people didn't bother me. It was the taking on and how do you deal with the emotions, be it is it being death or is
Mm,
something that's happy is somebody's wedding day, which is
yeah.
filled with emotions and people are acting different ways they don't normally act. So it was how do you navigate through that? And that's something that I'm still finding my feet because every person's different and it's something that I found very interesting.
And I think, like, from my experience, no pressure or anything, but I think a good celebrant can make or break a funeral, can't it, really? Because
100%.
I think sometimes I've certainly sat in funerals myself where you can tell that the person up at the front talking about somebody's life doesn't actually know them. Do you know, like, there's
Hmm.
things that just don't feel consistent with, like, my experience of the person. So I think
Yep.
that role of, like, actually standing up there and telling somebody's life story and paying tribute to them is such a kind of key part of that funeral process and the rituals behind it as well. So
I
Yeah.
completely agree with you because there was one I had, and it was not long when I'd started, and it was Laura's dad's friend's wife
Okay.
that passed away, and I knew them from like parties. I didn't really know them, and basically I'd get offered to do the service, and my arse collapsed because I was like, oh no, this is so challenging because. I know it was connected to Stuart, and the minute it was
Right.
connected to Stuart, I was like, I don't know, because my father-in-law passed away, that'll be just over a year ago. So I found it very, very difficult, but I wanted to make sure I nailed this. I wanted to make sure I got the perfect service for Barbara. Her name was Barbara, and she was phenomenal. She had such an amazing story. The daughter helped me so much, as the husband did
Mm.
as well, and her dad. And we got there, and when you're doing a service like that, like you're saying, it can make or break it. I was out with a lot of celebrants last night, and we were laughing because laughing about funerals and weddings, because not in any of these senses, but in the fact that people see you from like people see me from the gym. Everybody
Yep.
knows me as Chris that runs the gym. That's what Chris does. So when they see you in a completely different role, they're a bit like, what's happening here? So when
Mm.
I was there, people just assumed I was carrying the coffin in.
Ah, right,
So as we
okay.
were standing outside, they assumed I was carrying the coffin in. But when I was standing out there, every person I was seeing, so I knew my mother-in-law was coming, I knew my brother-in-law was coming, I knew Laura's uncle was going. So that's what I knew. But then there was all these people I knew from school. There was people that I used to run about, and I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
oh my goodness, this is a lot. So as I was standing, and they all call me Ferry. Oh, how you doing, Ferry? How you doing? And then as I was standing there and we're ready to carry the coffin in, I started walking behind the coffin, and I heard two people saying, why the F is Ferry following that up there, right? So, I mean, they couldn't have
Like,
been
where are
that
you off
quiet
to?
because I heard them as well. So when I went up, I had to introduce, but I did the service, and I sat before we did the service. Actually, the daughter, the youngest daughter, has two kids, and I sat with the two kids. I just actually sat at the front, and the two kids were round about the same age as my daughters. And we just sat and we were blaring away, and I'm giving them high fives. And I'm like, look, by the way, it's absolutely fine. It's fine to laugh. It's fine to smile. I said, see today, I said, see your gran was really funny. I said, so
Mm.
we'll go to all these funny stories. And we
Beautiful.
did that, and we did the service. And at the end of it, the next day, the daughter wrote to me, and she wrote again, like thanking me so much. But she was so nice about it. And one of the things that she says to me was, when they went back after for the reception, and they were all having their tea, she goes, so many people came up to me and says to me, I love the fact that you got somebody that knew your mum to do the service. And she says it just made it even more emotional because she goes, I know you didn't know my mum. I know you knew my mum in passing. She goes,
Yeah.
but you didn't know my mum. She goes, but everybody thought you did. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, that's something you're like, right. If I can get that across and people feel that, then that is doing that person's life justice.
100%.
So I do agree with you. It really annoys me when people don't, a celebrant or a humanist, or they don't explain the person's life. And there's certain elements of funerals that I think are beautiful. I think a Catholic funeral can be beautiful. The venue, everything about it, like the smells. The thing I don't agree with, I'm mongrel, right? So Church of Scotland, Catholic, and I love both. They've all got great elements. The one thing I don't like is the 3.5 minutes compressed somebody's life into telling them about it.
Yeah.
I couldn't live this over. I told Laura when I die, I want a double slot because I want people to be
You've
up
got a
there.
lot of story to tell.
I have so many stories, and that's the thing. So that's the one thing. So but then again, there'll be certain things at funerals and crematoriums I don't agree with because they can be turned around very, very fast, and the next service is in straight after you. So everything has got its negatives, but there's so many things that have got so many positives. Just depends on your religion, your background, your beliefs.
I've got set questions I'm going to ask you, but you said something really interesting there, Chris, that I think would be helpful, like for people to understand. You said humanist or celebrant. What's the difference? Like to people listening, what's the difference between you and a humanist, a priest? Like what's the different roles?
I'm going to end up getting all these humanists like stabbing me. But
From
I
your perspective.
didn't from my perspective. So when I was starting out, I was looking into who and what. To me a humanist was a humanist. A humanist and a celebrant were exactly the same thing.
Mm,
I just assumed they were exactly the same thing. My naivety, it was that's what it was. So I started sending out emails. The nicer ones were the ones who wrote back that were celebrants. Now that's me being a wee bit bitter because I had a really horrible email from somebody, and it was part of the humanists. It wasn't the Humanist Society, it was just a humanist organization. I don't know
Organisation.
what one it was. And they were like, "You're clearly a celebrant." And I was like, "I'm clearly, you've labelled me already."
Okay.
Now, the thing is with celebrants I like is if I do a funeral and the family asks for a Bible reading,
Mm-hmm.
I can do a Bible reading.
Mm-hmm.
If they ask for hymns, I can do hymns, which I love. And they sometimes, when the boys up at the crematorium slags me, he goes, "Oh, there, here we go, the Reverend Ferry again," because I do so many burials, and I do so many like hymns, and I do Bible readings. But I love that. I think it's
Okay.
great because my gran goes to church, Laura and her mum go to church. As I say, like, my family were Catholic, so it's something for me that's really personal, and that I love putting
Mm.
that in there. But if you are a humanist, you cannot reference God because there is no God, and that's the
Right.
thing. So there's that divide.
Right.
Not all humanists. I mean, some humanists that are a wee bit kooky boo will cover crosses and they'll be like, "No, none of this can be shown." Not all of them are like that.
Mm-hmm.
The wild cards are, but the other ones are. For instance, I heard one the other day, and I get a family transferred to me, and they says, "No, we just want a celebrant. We don't want a humanist," because they asked for Robbie Williams' Angels to be played, and the humanist says no. You cannot
Right.
play Robbie Williams' Angels because there is no angels. I'm like,
Oh, you're
do you
kidding
know
on.
what? You are
Oh,
cookie boo. Like
aye.
that is you. So the family's already grieving. Now
Aye.
you're telling them they can't play their
The
granny's favourite song. I was
mm-hmm.
like, so I that's the
Ridiculous.
sort of difference I've noticed. But when it comes to, for instance, celebrants and humanists, when it comes to even weddings, so that's the sort of difference there. None of us can mention Bible readings. None of us can say hymns. Only a priest or a minister can say that,
Right.
and we can only marry people in certain areas. So we couldn't marry them in a church, a chapel, or
Mm.
a registry office. We can pretty much it's fair game anywhere else.
Outside of that.
Outside that, council buildings like the city chambers, you can't do. They have their own set like
Mm.
register in there, which was quite surprising. So I couldn't marry my mate. I wasn't going to
Mm.
marry my mate, you know what I mean? But I was I couldn't do my friend's wedding. So that's the sort of things when you start seeing the difference between them. But
Ah.
yeah, that's what put me off being a humanist. Well, plus I would do it.
The funny thing, it always makes me laugh. Like my mum, who is 77 this year, she still calls them humorists.
A humorist.
It's like, oh, it's
Sometimes they are
one of the
humorists.
humorists. It's
Aye.
like humanists.
Humor.
Makes me laugh every time.
It is bizarre. Like there's so many organisations out there, and it, I think it's just when it comes to somebody being a celebrant, it's a team that sort of fits your vibe. That might be some
Mm,
people's vibe. That's what they're
hmm
into. I
hmm
am not.
hmm
And the team I'm with, like the Paul and Laura, they started like the Scottish organisation, the Celebrants. I like that because I can just be me. Like
Yeah.
they know I'm cheeky. They know I'm loud. They know I'm very, very straight to the point. And but so are they. So it actually works really, really well. And
Mm,
that's nice. And then when we went out with the team last night, everybody's completely different. So there's one guy, it's the Hebridean boy, Ali, and he's a bagpiper. He does like weddings, he does everything. There's all these beautiful venues, but when he talks about when he's a celebrant, at a funeral, he's a gifted bagpiper, and when
wow.
he's doing the service, he doesn't charge. He'll just offer his service. He's like, "Would you like me to pipe them in?" And
Oh,
he'll pipe them in. Do you know what I mean? So everybody's got their own
hmm
skill set, and everybody's
hmm
very unique, and everybody's different, and that's the really nice thing as well. So
Beautiful.
there you go.
Right, let me dive into my questions because the whole
Go for it.
premise of this season is each of my guests is going to be asked the same three questions, and I want to see kind of what comes out of essentially that conversation for us, all right? So my first question
Okay.
is, can you tell us a wee bit about one unexpected lesson that you have learned about grief and loss from your experience as a celebrant?
Um, Anger.
Okay.
That's been one. I don't see that happens all the time. It's a very rare occasion, and I found it very hard to process how a family was dealing with me because they were very venomous. That's the only word I could say, like
Mm,
the way they were being. But I knew there was obviously an underlying issue. They were acting with me, and the undertaker that gave me, he says, "I'm giving you this as a test." He says,
oh,
this is going to test you, but I do think you're fit for it, and I think it's something you're going to need to learn to deal with. So
mm,
he knew the anger they were going through. So just to give you a bit of story, I got but the son wouldn't meet me. He just wanted it was a woman's job, he said, to deal with the funeral. So I
Mm.
knew straight away it was a bit old school. Um, try to deal with the sister. She lived down south, so we try to get that sorted. And the eulogy was very bullet pointy, and I was trying to unpack it. We weren't getting as much from it. Then all of a sudden, the son sent me through his notes, so they were very conflicting. So I tried to
Mm.
compare them together. Did the eulogy, says this is the first draft. We did that. They said everything was fine, but in the background, the I'd asked, I says to them, I'll be finished the service. I would back to back services. Can we get a wee phone call? Yeah, that's fine. Everything was very nice. Paper trail, everything was lovely. So they were emailing back and forth, but then something's must have happened in the background again, dealing with the funeral, or the death, and there was more anger
Mm.
towards the Undertaker and myself, and then all of a sudden I was apparently avoiding the phone calls and I wasn't talking, and none of this was true.
No.
A call had been arranged. The Undertaker knew this, so he was trying to deflate them. Once we got this, and I talked them down, I arranged to asked to go and meet them. Again, they wouldn't meet, so I did a
Mm.
Zoom like we're doing here, and I ran through every single word of the eulogy. I had the two of them sit down, and I made them agree it, and I asked them if you're happy with it, just email me back saying you're happy. Again, so the paper trail,
Yeah.
and they were happy because I knew there was something going on here. Once we did that, I turned up at the funeral. I was an hour early, which you know, Karen. I
Never.
wouldn't say I'm always sharp, but I'm sharp for funerals and weddings. But I'm talking about 20 minutes. I was an hour early because I'm going to get a coffee with Undertaker, and they were there waiting on me.
Wow.
And the minute I get out, I could tell there was a lot of anger. So straight away, I gave her a hug. And
Mm.
I was like, and I gave her a hug, and it was like I could just feel the shoulders drop, but you could tell see there was anger there. And I says, like, come with me, Mom will go and talk through it. We talked through it. You've missed this bit out, this bit out, this bit out. I hadn't. I went
Mm.
through it and I sat with the folder, and she was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I was like, "It's maybe just you've maybe just skipped past it while you're reading it." She's like, I'm sorry. I've not read it. I've just not read it properly." I was
Mm.
like, "It's fine." Did it. No, I was rattling by that
Yeah.
point when I was doing the
Yeah.
service. And then by the end of it, they came up to me and they hugged me. They were really emotional. They invited me back for dinner. That everything completely changed. But it ends up I found out that their mother had been given the wrong medication in the nursing home. And
Ah, right,
her
okay.
death wasn't, it was preventable. So you could
Mm-hmm.
tell. So that's why I knew. So this
Where the
anger,
anger
I knew
comes
it was
from.
carried all the way through that service. There was an underlying issue and we found an
Mm-hmm.
underlying issue.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think as well, like when you're an external, like a service provider to all of that, you know, it's
Hmm.
like it's easy to find yourself in the kind of firing line because they can be angry at you. They don't need to have a lasting relationship with you, whereas they can maybe be angry with the people round about them because that's their friends, that's their family. There's damage done if they're, you know, shooting for the hip at folk that they actually do know. So
Hmm.
you're getting it in the neck.
It did. Thicker
Mm.
skin now.
Right, my second question, Chris. What's the single
Sing.
biggest misconception about your role? Like when you're meeting people, what's the thing they don't realise about what you do, or the thing that's kind of most misunderstood?
I think your job's dead sad sometimes.
Okay.
I'd met a family and I went in and I knew the son for the gym. So he used to train in one of the council gyms when I used to work in there. He's like, I knew it was you the minute you came in, right? And I was like, all right, cheers. So we were sitting there and we were talking away, and everything went great. I ended up being in there a lot longer than like I'd normally be, and it was the woman that passed away. It was her sister, and she I was packing my laptop away, and she says, "Chris, why do you do this?"
Mm,
She says, it just doesn't seem like something you would do. She goes, you're dead like jovial, you're dead like fun, like you're talking away, you're always dead upbeat and positive. She goes, why are you doing such a negative? Like, not like she goes, I don't mean negative, but it's a really sad job. And I was like, but it's not. I was
mm,
like, I says, because look at all the stories you've just told me about your sister. I says, we're actually going to celebrate her life. And then she got really upset. She's like, I never really thought about it like that.
yeah.
And I was like, but we are. And it's like you said earlier on, it's such an important role you've got.
Mm,
You'll make or break it.
yeah.
So having that honour to stand there and talk about somebody's thing, I think that's a misconception. People will say it's sad. Aye, it's sad.
Mm,
It is sad. I found this week very sad because I did, and I think that's a misconception as well. People are just assuming you've got like an armour.
Yeah, you're
And
not affected by it.
you're not. But my friend Lynn talks about that. Lynn does yoga and
Mm,
meditation, and Lynn was saying that she goes, when you come out of service, she goes, I hope you vision that you put on an armor. And I was like,
mm.
oh, we ain't chase yourself, Lynn. Right? But then the minute she said that, I did put on an armor. I had to do my first service in a parlour where it was the last time I seen my father-in-law,
Ah, right, okay.
and it wasn't a long service. It was going to be not an easier service. It was very. I knew everything that was happening. Found it so difficult. And
Yeah,
then the next day, I did a service, and all they did was talk about their gran, and they reminded me a combination of my nonna and my gran. So my gran's still here. I'm very fortunate, but I found that very hard as well.
yeah,
So I think people think, oh, he's numb. He's numb to it. You're not. Not in any
yeah,
way. You know what I mean, so you
yeah.
do carry it sometimes.
I
So
sometimes find, I don't know if this is something you've come across, but I sometimes find in my work, like the more points of contact your story and your experience has got with the person that you're there for, the harder it is, you know. So
yep.
it's like I sometimes find like the more similarities, obviously for me working in a counselling perspective, the more similarities my life has got to my client's life, the more I need to be careful about that kind of leakage, I suppose, of like their stuff and my stuff. And I can imagine like if you've obviously everything you've gone through with Laura's dad and
Hmm.
deaths in your own family, like the more points of contact there is there of similarity, it's probably
Yep.
more likely that you get into the space of feeling what the family are feeling, or feeling like, oh gosh, I can really imagine or empathize what they're going through.
I completely agree with it. I feel this week was a bit more. I look at everything and I'm like, there must be signs. There must be signs in every single thing that's happened this week. So, like I was saying, it was the parlour service for Laura's dad was. Then there was the one yesterday reminding my gran and my nonna, and then it
Yeah.
came yesterday, and the family worked in Honeywells. And I knew my nonna and her brother worked in Honeywells, so it
Oh,
was
okay.
all these points. And I'm like, right, this is weird. Went in the Celebrant night out, and we did things. And it was one of the girls. I knew she lived near my gran and my aunt at Bella Houston. I went, look, you're not getting a taxi home. Jump in the car. I'm just going to drop you off. As I was driving her back, she's like, "Oh, just here, just here," and she was talking about how she was going into an undertaker's to go and introduce herself, and I was like, "Oh, my friend from Hollytown, crematorium, he's now working in this one just here." I said, that's right beside my aunt's bit. As we turned the corner, she went, "Oh, here," and I went silent, and she was like, "Are you all right?" And I'm like, I actually felt like I could burst out crying as we were driving down the street. She's like, "Not this one," and I was like, "Danielle, don't say this one." She went, "No, it's just the one after." She went, "But that's a really popular street. I like that street." I was like, "That's from Uncle Jack stayed," and Uncle Jack was my hero, and I was
Oh.
like, oh my God. And I was like, no, says that to Laura, says, I feel everything this week has happened for a reason because
Mm,
he was always the only one I would go to when I wanted to like share what I did, and he was always behind me and supported me. And I was like, that's a sign. That's a
yep.
sign that he's looking after me. So I was like, so it is like everyone happens for a reason and all these different points. So I sorry we went off topic, but I just wanted to share
No,
that
I
with you.
think I think that's beautiful as well. Just that realization of like, yeah, there's a reason why you've been having all of these wee moments across
Hmm.
this last week as well. You've
Aye.
taken me nicely into my final question, and I hope this kind of gives a wee bit of insight to why you do the job as well. So my last question is about like, could you give us a moment or an experience that you've had along the way, Chris, that has really affirmed that this is either your calling or just your passion for what you do? Because as you say, it's not an easy job to do necessarily. So yeah, have you had a moment or an experience that's made you just go, yes, this is why I do this?
I like. I think it's maybe a combination of the weddings and the funerals. Like you can, it's. I'm trying to think how to word it right. The two of the most prominent parts in somebody's life, depending on
100%.
what the way they want their life to set out. Do you know what I mean? And
Mm.
this is the type of thing. Like we're standing beside somebody doing their wedding and saying, "I now pronounce you as husband and husband, wife and wife, whatever way." It's so nice because you're part of that. And
Mm.
you've been able to tell everybody their love story of how they got to there. And people coming up to the end going like again, like, oh, that was so good. Like, how they felt they were on a journey with them.
Mm.
That's amazing. And being part of that moment in their life and saying the words, I don't think you can ever top. I know as a celebrant role, but when it comes to like the funeral part of it, is like just getting a message like that just before you come on, and you're like, I think I'm in the right role here.
Yeah.
Um, I've never had a role where I've always run the gyms and I've always been a coach, like I was insane. But the thing I've been finding, I really love this, and I'll never take. I still love what I do, but and
Mm.
this is just like another string to my bow, right? But when it comes to, I find the thing like I sit with my mum and dad, and they're so interested in it, so
Mm,
interested. My mother-in-law so interested, my grand so interested, and that's not saying oh you're only doing it because they. It's not because you can see how proud they are of you, and I'm like
yeah,
maybe I'm doing the right thing here, but it's just something I love, and it's opened so many doors for me. It's given me so many opportunities that I never even thought, and from being a celebrant to then being asked to be a host at a big charity event, like because people are seeing you, they're like, "Oh, you're talking," and it was so lovely. Like people would say to me, like, "This is what you're meant to do." Oh,
yeah,
you're great, and you're a bit like. I find I don't take compliments well. Like if you ask Laura, I'm always like hype it, and I criticize myself, but I could have done better here, and I could have done better there. But now you're just like trying to take it in, and you're a bit like, no, maybe this is my calling. Will I be a celebrant forever? Well, you know me, can I don't know.
no,
Do you know what I mean? No, I'll probably end up coming up with another wacky idea and want to do something. But I do believe that it's going to lead me into a path that I'm want to get on, and this is a path that I love at this moment. But I believe everybody's path constantly changes. But at the moment, I am so happy where I am.
amazing. I think as
Mm.
well, like as your friend, as somebody that kind of gets the honour of knowing you outside of your working world, is like I think there's a beautiful skill set that you've got where you can connect with people really, really easily. And I think when it comes to like those really difficult times in life, like funerals, you know, obviously as a celebrant, you're in there right at, you know, just in a couple of hours, sometimes after the
Yeah.
death has occurred, you know, there's no time for emotions to settle. And I think there is a real skill in being able to hold people at those times in life when,
Hmm.
you know, the emotions are really raw and folk are feeling really overwhelmed. Like I often don't come in until further down the line where things have settled a wee bit, but I
Yeah.
know certainly in my experience, some of the people that I've worked with, there can be real harm done by people being really insensitive or even just unprepared or clumsy in those, you know, immediate days, hours, sometimes, you know, weeks after the death when things are feeling really raw. And I think there's a really beautiful thing about how you just connect with folk. And I loved what you said earlier on about that woman that was quite angry of like just giving her that hug and kind of diffusing things a wee bit. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, I think there's quite a lot of folk doing your job out there that maybe don't have that ability to just meet somebody right there in that moment and go, right, let's just breathe, calm, you know.
Completely agree with you. I mean, since doing this role, I've found there's so many like there's celebrants out there and humorists, and they're very flamboyant, they're very loud, they're very strong on stage. They're very introverted the minute they come
Yeah,
off stage.
yeah.
And like what I believe I'm exactly the same way as like if I met somebody that maybe went, oh, we listen to Karen's podcast. I'll just be the exactly the same way as I talk to you because I don't
Yeah.
believe in like putting on a front. Do you know what I mean, there is a sort of like stage presence you need to put on when you're doing certain things, but
Hmm.
I find that that's the thing is how do they deal with families like you're saying? Because if you're very introverted, how do you? Which there's nothing wrong with being introverted, but
No.
going into that, taking you from that and plopping you into that situation where the family are at their hardest moment. How do you find a common ground? How do you find like when I did yesterday, a couple of days ago, it was a very quick turnaround, and the
Mm.
brother to come from Sydney, and it was like the nephew basically he'd lost the three women, the strongest women in his life. His grand brought him up, his mum brought him up, his mum and his grand passed away, and it was his aunt that was bringing him up, and he was broken. And I knew I
Mm.
wasn't going to get in it, and it was again trying to find that common ground, and it was the brother. And I ended up because I went backpacking years ago. I worked in Sydney, so I just started speaking to him about Sydney, and you could just see his shoulders just woof, and he was
Oh,
telling me about it, and I'm like, I've been there, mate. Oh, by the way, how funny is it when you go to? Do they still do kangaroo kebabs? And I was trying to, and having a bit of banter, and it sort of like lightened it a wee bit. And like you're saying, it's trying to find and navigate through that, and just listen to everything they're saying, as little as it might be, and just try to find something that you can cling on to, talk about, and open the door so you can head through and find the stories.
beautiful.
There
Beautiful.
you are. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you
Oh,
for
well.
this, Chris. And if people want to connect with you, where do they find you online? What's your socials?
I pretend I use LinkedIn, but I don't really know. But Instagram, I really only use Instagram. I hate Facebook, so Instagram is Instagram. And I'm trying to get to TikTok,
Oh,
but if
TikTok, there we
anybody
go.
ever wants to message me, I would just say on Instagram. That's my
And your
main
website
place.
is
Under construction, but
under
it is
construction.
well, this new rebrand, but it's Chris Ferry with an I, not a Y, an I.com.
Amazing. Well, a huge thank you for obviously being, well, my first guest as well of season two. I hope that
We've
people are
set the
finding
bar,
this.
mate.
I
They've set the
know,
bar.
set it high, my love. I hope it's been helpful for people though to kind of do that behind the scenes look at some of the things that go on, in your world as a celebrant. If people have found this episode helpful, it's always great if you can like it, share it, interact with it, because that helps the platforms know that this is valuable content and they then will share it with more people. Remember, you can also use the Buy Me a Coffee link, because I say there's no coffee involved, but it does help towards the running costs of the show. Please do make sure that you subscribe to the series though, because that way you'll get notifications whenever we have new episodes coming out. And last but not least, if you do want to connect with me or Chris, we'll get our details in the show notes. And for me, I am on Facebook and Instagram, and both of those are at Continuum Counselling. And I'll be delighted to hopefully see you back here again next month. But one last time, a huge thank you, Chris, for being with me. Season 2, Episode 1. And this has been Grief Unedited.
Thanking you.